moment. And we're live. Welcome to the Town of East Gwillimbury's electronic meeting. Given this virtual meeting is incorporating new technology, we ask all participants and viewers to please be patient. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to conduct a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll call each council member's name. Please reply if you're present. Councillor Brothers, are you present?
Present.
Councillor Crone, are you present?
Present.
Councillor Roy DiClemente, are you present?
Present.
Councillor Persicini, are you present? Councillor Persicini, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Councillor Morton, are you present? Councillor Morton, are you present? Moving on, Councillor Foster, are you present?
Present.
Madam Mayor, you have all councillors with the exception of Councillor Morton, and live and online. Please proceed with the meeting. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. Is there any declaration of interest from members at this time? Seeing none, I will move to item D, deputations. Mr. Clerk, could you please confirm that we do not have any deputations at this time?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is item E, workshop. We have one workshop topic scheduled today, and it's a presentation to council regarding the Health and Active Living Plaza. For me, this is probably one of the most exciting presentations that I've ever been a part of in my 10 years as mayor. This Health and Active Living Plaza is more than a recreation facility. It is, and a library. It's a recognition of the importance of health and wellness in East Gwillimbury by partnering with numerous community organizations to ensure all residents' needs are met under one roof. In 2012, some may remember, the town closed the long-standing Queensville Community Center to build a new fire hall. At that time, residents were told that there would be a new facility built. Thank you to the residents who have been so patient, waiting for this new facility. After viewing the presentation, I know you won't be disappointed. I'll turn it over to CAO Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm at the Civic Center with a handful of staff today, and just wanted to kick off this important workshop by indicating this is one of the largest initiatives ever considered in the town's history. And even in the middle of this pandemic and COVID, it's important that we continue to move these large-scale projects along. Council has seen this a number of times over the past several years, and our staff team led by Aaron Karmazin has done a terrific job of engaging partners and the community in helping to design a facility that's first class and that will serve the needs of the community for many years to come. Our operations center build is currently back on track, and it's good to hear that we are expecting, hopefully, to have occupancy there towards the beginning of next year. And that's a well-earned initiative for our frontline workers who have been in clearly inadequate facilities for many years. And this initiative itself, the Queensville Healthy Active Living Plaza, is certainly a key initiative for us. And there'll be some good discussion today. We have adjusted some of the elements of it as we move forward, and look forward to some good discussion today. And a further report will be coming in the weeks for council to provide decisions and directions on the next step. So on that note, I'm going to pass it off to General Manager Karmazin to lead today's discussions.
Thank you, Tom, and Mayor Haxon, council, residents, and businesses of East Gwillimbury. Thanks for the opportunity today to present the Health and Active Living Plaza update. As a staff team, we're certainly very excited to see the project take shape. This is one of the largest projects and investments ever undertaken in the history of the town of East Gwillimbury. The Health and Active Living Plaza is an investment in our communities and our overall quality of life within East Gwillimbury. If COVID-19 has highlighted anything, it's how much we value our parks, trails, open spaces, programs, events, and facilities as vehicles for healthy and active living and being together in East Gwillimbury. The workshop today and the report to Council on May 20th will present to you some exciting plans and themes and guiding principles moving forward. Our community is a design committee, unprecedented public outreach and consultation with the public, residents, community groups, stakeholders. This will continue, but it's going to continue in a different way. No longer can we hold public meetings, and we hope to eventually be able to host public meetings, but we are committed to virtually hosting outreach and consultation so everyone can have their voice and their input into the project. Service delivery enhancement. This center of community will provide expanded and improved services for our residents. Convenient and complementary services, unprecedented service delivery under one roof, through one door, with up to 16 partners in the areas of health, active living, public and social services, learning, arts, culture, and diversity. Creating complete communities, parks, trails, schools, design collaboration with our residential and our mixed-use development partners. And lastly, but most importantly, financial sustainability, capital and operating responsibility, ensuring we build when we can afford to build and operating when we can afford to operate. I'd like to thank the project management team before we get started with CPRC, Chris Catania, Rhonda Pogue, Frank Mazzata, and Justin Tucker, and from the library, Monica Mahachek and Angela Ramsey. Our presenters today will be Chris Catania, myself, and Carolyn Bramm with Finance. And joining us from MJMA are presenters architect Andrew Bramm, architect Mark Downing, and architect and partner Victor Jaunkalns. We could please flip to the agenda. Today, under the agenda, we'll cover where we have been and where we're going, our collective efforts towards the vision, the shared vision of the HALP and the Queensville Center, our financial pre-planning, and some of the HALP plans that are now taking shape. So if we could flip to the next slide, please. Just a reminder, it's been a long time since we took that bus tour out to the HALP site with our new council. The HALP site is of course centrally located in Queensville, just north of Doan Road, and just a quick drive from the Highway 404. Next slide, please. The Queensville Center, building upon our initial plans with our developers, a complete community, parks, trails, schools, community center, homes and businesses, and of course the Health and Active Living Plaza site. I'm now going to ask Chris Catania, our manager of municipal facilities, to present the community as a design committee approach to designing the Health and Active Living Plaza.
Thank you, General Manager Karmazin. As an integral part of the concept design phase, MJMA and Town Project Management Team have conducted an extensive public outreach campaign. More than 30 public meetings, special events, and public open houses have been held with residents and community stakeholders seeking input on the Health and Active Living Plaza design. Public open houses were conducted giving East Gwillimbury communities of Mount Albert, Allen Landing, Queensville, and Sharon an opportunity to seek public input into the project. Utilizing different avenues, providing the community as a design committee, has garnered over 600 comments regarding the design, programmatic elements, and facility fit for the Health and Active Living Plaza. Common themes arising from the outreach include fitness, which would include cardio and weights, aquatic programming and features, library programs, which would include makerspace and music rooms, an indoor playground, multi-purpose programming, and outdoor play spaces. The HALP will be approximately 80,000 square feet. Of the 80,000 square feet, Aquatics and adjacent change rooms will provide a third of the facility, followed closely by the gymnasium, track, indoor playground, potential fitness, and library. The gross area of the HALP also includes the indoor boardwalk and common spaces. At this point, I'll transfer this back over to General Manager Carbazin.
Thank you. In creating a balanced site plan, the staff team as well as the architects have created a site that is very interactive. The site features an active living zone, a passive event space zone, a courtyard placemaking, a rear porch and a front porch, an interconnecting boardwalk, and an urban living room that is all interactive space with the mixed-use development to the east. Next slide, please. When you start to take a look at the facility fit and the amenities that you could program and animate in those spaces, such spaces as event space, parkland, learning and teaching garden, a courtyard with outdoor kitchen space, amenities, barbecues, skate park area, sports fields and sports courts, and then interactive areas at the front of house with public art, perhaps interactive games tables, an event street that could be closed down for pedestrian traffic and large-scale special events, and then of course the urban square, what we're calling the health and active living room. Next slide, please. I'll now turn it over to Chris Catania to talk about future expansion plans.
The site concept provides flexibility for future facility expansion. This would include adding on to the library, future full court gymnasium expansion to the west, and the potential for childcare as well. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to MJMA to discuss the remaining slides.
Thank you, Chris. The plan is really organized as a social hub, a major social space that runs right through the center of the building, and it's meant to be inviting and also to organize the major program components. As Aaron mentioned, from the main entrance on the east side, coming from the boardwalk and the possible closure of that street is a large event space. On the right side, there's a leisure pool and 25-meter basin that's visible from the large public lobby. And further to the west is the gymnasium, and with the second level running track that you see at the upper right-hand corner of the drawing. The central public open space figure of the plan is a large courtyard. And this lets us have the library on one side, on the lower left, and the child space on the upper right, really as buildings that have sort of complete openness to the public park, and they open onto the garden space of the courtyard. One of the program elements that Aaron and Chris have been great in developing are a series of multi-purpose pods that are multi-purpose learning rooms, health and concession areas around these major program spaces that also open up into the courtyard, and they're really the most flexible and multi-purpose components of the facility. Thank you. Next.
So I'm sure all of you are familiar with this image. In the way that we think about this design project, you'll hear all of us talking about the importance of public space, of connectivity to the larger context. And so it's important for us as a design team to work with the people that are producing design work for the larger community as well. So our design team has been working for a couple of seasons now with the development group that's working on the master plan for the future town center. We see our project as being fundamentally linked to the way that the future town center is going to be planned. We think that the concept of a town center will be amplified and made better by the way that the HALP makes those kind of connections to the park and to the community. Could you go to the next slide, please? So in our work with the development group, we've produced a number of models and drawings. This graphic came out of a series of collaboration sessions that we had with your development group, and I think looking at the future development in 3 dimensions illustrates how connected these projects are to each other. You heard Vic talk about the idea of the interior boardwalk of our project and how it connects all the elements of the interior of the building together and connects the building to the park space around it. Well, we see those connections as being equally important when you look at the project in the context of the future of Queensville. So I think this graphic illustrates the way the HALP building actually becomes an exciting and vibrant terminal point for the main east-west street that runs through the future development. Go to the next slide, please. So I think really what's happening here is while this project will predate most of what will happen in the kind of future development of Queensville, we still see this as a future focal point. And at that moment, you can see in the slide here that a kind of T-shaped intersection where the main street terminates at the HALP. That moment, what we're calling the health and active living room, conceptually a very interesting idea, that this outdoor space bounded to the west by the HALP and to the north and south by future development, that urban square that's created by these multiple buildings coming together, we see that as a really amazing opportunity to make a kind of fantastic outdoor public space, which we're calling the front porch. So you heard Aaron talk a little bit about what could happen there. So on top of all the things that we're doing inside the building, we're seeing that moment where the HALP project intersects the future development as being a fantastic and exciting opportunity. Can you go to the next slide, please? Chris, I'm hoping that you'll jump in here and have some commentary about what our ambition is for that space.
Thank you, Mark. I'll start off here. The front porch concept, including the exterior boardwalk of the HALP, will be developed further with a landscape architect. The front porch will include interactive areas, potential program zones, as well as potential for water feature. The exterior boardwalk that you see will also have modern furniture, plantings, and the potential for an East Gwillimbury Walk of Distinction.
Thanks, Chris. And further to that, the urban square extent, the health and active living room, will also feature interactive placemaking spaces. And there's good examples of this that are starting to emerge across Ontario, and in particular the Greater Toronto area. A couple good examples would be the Mississauga Celebration Square, or even a larger example would be something like the Young Dundas Square. Wi-Fi charging stations, potential for public art, some lighting displays, large-scale display screens that you may show concerts on, or sporting events, or arts and cultural events. And it's essentially a gathering space where people will simply want to hang out, spend time, and interact with the HALP site, as well as the mixed-use area, which will have some residential, some shops, restaurants, boutiques, those types of things. So really, it's bringing and integrating the sites and bringing them together to be a complete interactive space.
So you can see that on top of the programmatic relationship our building has to your future park, we see our building as being a full participant in the way that health and active living room behaves for the rest of the community at large. this three-dimensional view points out that that the sculptural form of the building really does have that kind of character as being a backdrop to this active, versatile, evolving outdoor public space.
All right. So for this part, we're looking at the development of the form and character of the HALP. For the design of the building, we started with an interest in creating an identifiable architecture specific to the place and the community. Given its impact on the landscape of East Gwillimbury, we focused on the theme of glacial landscapes as a starting point for the project. Next slide. For the building's form and its relationship to the surrounding landscape, we looked at glacial landforms specific to the Oak Ridges moraine. This included such forms as the drumlin and glacial erratic that could be found throughout the area. Here's an early study of the east edge of the site. This explores the concept of a fractured form, which creates an inviting promenade through the building. This also provides the opportunity to create a continuous clear story above the space running east-west. For the study, we also were interested in creating a dynamic form with opportunities to develop interior-exterior relationships between the building and its surrounding site. Here's a couple bird's eye views of that same model. Here you can see the continuous east-west clear story running at the center of the building. And we're also seeking to create a south-facing courtyard between the library and play spaces. Next slide. So this is a bird's eye view from the southeast portion of the site. And what this really emphasizes is the building is set within a park. So on every edge of the building, it interacts and has a relationship. And through the sculpting of the facade and the positioning of the glazing, we're hoping to emphasize and create relationships between the interior and exterior. On the east portion of the site, as Mark previously touched upon, we're showcasing the urban square and front porch. This is going to be a focal point and a terminus of the east-west Queensville Road, and will feature public art, games tables, seating, and event space. We're seeking to create entrances on all four sides of the building, from the parking lot, from the Queensville east portion, from the courtyard area, and also from the north. We're hoping to utilize, as you can see in this slide, natural daylighting features, not only for the clear story space running through the lobby, but also in the gym, pool, library, and play spaces. Next slide, please. Here's a street view from the east of the site. This showcases the axial connection between the Queensville Town Center, the urban square, and the HALP. We're intentionally opening, as you can see, the kind of central lobby space up to allow views through the building and provide ground level glazing at the library space on the left of the page, and also at the north side of the pool on the right side, to create relationships between the interior and exterior. In terms of material palette, we're seeking to create a warm feeling, and we're intending to use natural materials such as zinc cladding and wood for the soffit to give that natural feel. Next slide. Here's a view from the southeast, looking specifically at the library area. We're intentionally aiming to provide a large canopy on the south face of the library to provide shelter and connection between the library and park spaces. For the exterior perimeter of the building around the library, we're aiming to include program elements such as a literacy garden and seating to create a variety of seating places for inhabitation. Well, we haven't got to the kind of detailed design of these interior spaces. We did want to share a number of precedents for the primary rooms, just to give you an idea of where we're heading. So this is for the kind of interior gym space. We're looking to create a bright and inviting space with an emphasis on minimizing glare while utilizing natural daylighting. For the aquatic space, we're also aiming for a bright and functional space with a crisp natural palette, including wood accents, similar to the soffit on the right side of the page. We're aiming to use a thoughtful use of natural daylighting, so using it strategically, such as at low level and potentially clear stories or glazing above. And the program for the aquatics facility will include a variety of features such as a lap and leisure pool, lazy river, and hydrotherapy basin. We're also aiming to provide on-deck viewing for both the lap pool and leisure areas. Accessibility is certainly a key driving factor as part of the project. This is an example of our UBC, Universal Change Room, and we're looking to incorporate for the aquatics change rooms a similar design. There's an emphasis on keeping the building open and reducing barriers and improving sightlines throughout it. The design will exceed the Ontario Building Code in terms of accessibility. Great. For the library space, at its heart, we're seeking to create a modern place to hang out. It will function as a knowledge exchange for the community and include study rooms, an innovation lab, and a learning pod. And it will have an emphasis on digital services and connectivity, providing Wi-Fi, places for tablets, iPhones, charging, etc. It will also seek, as you can see in this image, to embrace connections between the interior and exterior of the building. For the interior lobby space, the goal is to function as a social heart for the community. We're aiming to create a fine-grained interior street catering to the viewing of activities, relaxing, and interacting with the community. Similar to all the other spaces of the project, we're working to create connections between the interior and exterior of the building and potentially include public art as part of the lobby. And I'll leave you with this last image. This is the south-facing courtyard. But our intent here is to create an inviting space with a variety of community amenities, including an outdoor kitchen and community gardens. We're aiming to cultivate a relationship with nature by creating natural landforms, planting, and potentially green canopy. The emphasis, again, is creating exterior and interior relationships through the strategic use of exterior glazing and positioning of canopies.
At this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to General Manager Karmazin.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Andrew. If I can go to the next slide, please. Just want to go through some of the pre-planning, financial pre-planning. We will ask that Carolyn Brown provide insights into the next slides with regards to capital and operating pre-planning. At this point, we've awarded, of course, the design of the HALP with architectural services. And so that facility design cost that you see before you, we are moving through that process of concept design and then moving the project through to detailed design. We will be requesting an additional amount to perform background studies. It's a normal course of action. As we start to progress the design, we then, once we determine what a site plan looks like, we then have to look at different studies that we need to perform to do our due diligence on the site. So that would be geotechnical work, hydrology for stormwater management, hydrogeology, so how the site performs as far as the groundwater, and some additional surveying that may be required. And this is all in preparation as we move out of detailed design to prepare the plans for our site plan application through to planning and development services in the building department. And then after we have the tender ready drawings, at that point, when we are prepared to tender, and we do tender the project, and prior to award of contract to a general contractor, we would then report back to council in its entirety of the project costs. And we would activate phase 2, which is the facility contract administration. So that's bringing on our architects to see the project through from detailed design through to construction to ensure the facility and the site is constructed as per the design. And we do also have the design project for the exterior park facility that we will report back to council on May 20th. Now that we do have a site plan developed, we now know what the park could look like. And so now we have to move forward with the detailed design for the park's amenities. I will remind council that the design and construction of the facility is 100% development charge eligible financed. So that's through indoor recreation development charges, outdoor recreation development charges, and the community capital contributions. So I'll now turn the presentation over to Carolyn Brown to speak about the capital construction costs and the operating costs.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. So the current cost estimates for the Health and Active Living Plaza are about $50 million. These figures are a little bit different than estimates that you may have seen before. The estimates shown here are costs as we expect them to be at the time of construction, so in several years, and they reflect future design refinements as well as a contingency provision. As we know, construction costs are adjusted every year with inflation, and as we get further along in the design process, we've been able to refine expected costs. The chart on the slide here shows the breakdown of the costs amongst the facility components, and you'll note that it also includes the park costs as well as fixtures, furniture, and equipment. The facility is a new addition, and as Aaron mentioned, it's required to service growth in our community, so it's eligible for funding through development charges and our community capital contributions. Council will know that we've also applied for a grant for the capital construction costs through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, which can cover up to 73% of eligible costs. So we hope to learn soon whether or not we've been successful with this application, and we will definitely keep you informed. If we could go to the next slide, please. The Health and Active Living Plaza is required to service a community of 40,000 residents. Staff will be working to develop financing strategies related to the capital construction and operating of the facility closer to the construction date. This will examine expenditures and appropriate funding sources. At this time, it's estimated that the net annual operating costs for the HALP will be in the range of $1.6 million. So this includes $1 million for the recreation facility, $400,000 for the new library space, and $200,000 for the park. A multi-year funding plan has already been established through our annual budget process for the town's new facilities, including the Health and Active Living Plaza. And so far, we're about halfway there for the initial operations of the HALP in our budget. So I'm going to now pass it back to Aaron for the review of next steps.
Madam Mayor? Sorry, Aaron.
Oh.
Madam Mayor, I believe CEO Webster has some comments.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. If it's okay, I'd like to add, I still like to put my finance hat on occasionally. And there's 3 points I wanted to make at this point in time, and to give credit to the staff team that have been leading this project. First point is, one of the items we haven't even highlighted is the 15 acres of land that this will be built on. A number of municipalities or private sector, the biggest challenge you have is finding a site and acquiring the land in a cost-effective manner that doesn't impact taxpayers. And we have 15 acres that have been dedicated to the town several years ago now as part of the registration of the first plan of subdivision in the Queensville Community Plan. And current estimates on that alone would have the land value in excess of $15 million. So that's point one I wanted to make. Point 2 and 3 are based on learning from other best practices. York Region, who we have a very close affiliation with, has built many mega projects over the year. And this is, to us, a mega project. And one of the things that York was doing several years ago, I'd say 5, 6 years, even maybe more, was they were using budgets that were not time adjusted. So they would go out with a project and they would use stale information. They didn't provide adequate design, consultation, and contingency. And they would end it at the end of the day looking actually like budgets when they delivered the project, that they delivered way over budget. And so we've made a time adjustment, as Ms. Brown outlined, and a contingency adjustment. And one thing I can tell you, the further you get along in a process, after detailed design, we'll have a much better idea of what this facility ultimately is going to cost. And that's one of the key things that we will bring forward. And the third one is, again, another best practice is Markham several years ago opened up the English Glen Community Center. And it's a top-notch facility that serves their community. And for many years, they carved out budget room in their budget too. So when they actually opened the facility on day one, they didn't have a huge tax impact. And our staff team, as you've indicated there, Carolyn, has done a terrific job. We're about halfway there for the two new facilities, the Operations Center and Recreation Facility, but it's a key initiative there. I think close to $750,000 to operate the facilities has already been accounted for in our budgets, and we have a few years to make up the difference. So wanted to comment on those three elements and give credit to both the CPRC group and the finance team that have been integral in this project.
Thank you, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Tom. So at this point in time, moving forward, some next key steps is a fulsome, detailed report back to council being prepared for May 12th. And then hopefully continuing with our detailed design development. So moving the plans forward from a concept design through to detailed design. So that's when the engineering team gets involved, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers, ongoing consulting with our communities. As indicated earlier, this is going to continue, but it's just going to continue in a different way. We'll be working with communications and IT to determine ways to outreach to our communities, to further the dialogue so our communities can have input, our residents can have input, our stakeholders, and our community groups. Our detailed financial planning, so continuing with our pre-planning, and in addition to what Mr. Webster had indicated, taking a look at our capital costs, taking a look at our operating costs, and ensuring financial responsibility. Our future council updates. As the design progresses, we will be checking in with council and providing as much information as we can with regards to the design and how the design continues to take shape, and our public outreach process and what we're hearing from our residents and our community groups. If I can flip to the next slide, please. Just a high level way forward is we're going to complete the design and site plan into 2021. Eventually hoping by the end of 2021 to possibly pre-qualify some of our general contractors, which is always a best practice, similar to what we've done with the Operations Center. Possibly tendering the project in 2022. And then based on population threshold and subject to council approval, commencing construction in the window of 2022, hopefully, but outwards to 2025, depending on, again, our population thresholds of hitting the 40,000 residents required for financial sustainability to operate the facility. Next slide, please. So at this time, I'd like to thank staff and the architects for their work on the project. And as well as I'd like to thank CAO Webster and the SMT team for support of the project. But most importantly, a thank you to Mayor, Paxton, and Council for supporting the shared vision of the Health and Active Living Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, what an amazing presentation. Thank you, MJMA architects. I think you've captured a lot of the ideas and creativity that members of council and our community have had. So I commend you for that. It's wonderful, and thank you to our staff led by Aaron. It truly is an exciting time for us, and certainly a crossroads for sure. I wonder at this time if I could have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation, please.
I'll move it.
Mayor, it's moved by Councillor Crone, seconded by Councillor Foster.
Thank you very much. Do members of council have questions or comments regarding the workshop presentation, please?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
I want to congratulate everyone involved. This is an exciting time for us. I think this will put us on the map. This is unbelievable. I'm really excited about the whole project and seeing every detail and showing every detail. So I don't think we might have missed here and there, but I think this is almost 99% perfect. I love it. I'm excited. Thank you.
Are there any other members of council with questions or comments?
And Mayor, Councillor Carruthers has a question or comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. So much work has gone into this, and it certainly is exactly what we asked for. And I applaud everyone who's working on it. I do have some concerns, though. It appears that the presentation is predicated on the fact that nothing has changed. And I have a question around how our plans are going to change in light of current events. We know that we have to move forward on this. I want to move forward on this, but there was a noticeable absence in the presentation, excuse me, of how our plans have changed, given, excuse me, how much the world has changed in the last number of months. So as designers of public spaces, I'm wondering if you can help us understand what you're hearing, or what you're reading, what the research is saying about how building community spaces has changed, and what we will need to think about going forward. I know there's a lot of research out there about room sizes and air exchange. I know that our community will change with more people working from home, maybe needing space to have one-on-one meetings or something like that. I'm just thinking that we're at a great point here where we can adapt to the new reality, where other municipalities will have to retrofit facilities. And I don't want us to have to be too far down this road and have to look at retrofitting as new guidelines come out. We know there will be new standards, there will be new protocols, there will be new needs, there will be new research. So I'm just wondering if we can have some comments on the thoughts that have gone into how this presentation has changed, if it had been given in February versus if it's given today. If someone can comment on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Shall I take a shot at it? Is that okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
No, that's a very good comment, and we're looking at those issues consistently for a wide range of public projects that we're doing right now. You're very true to say that there's a lot of research about the time versus the viral load in buildings. So a kind of relooking at mechanical systems, natural air ventilation, and air circulation is in terms of the HVAC systems of the building critical. How they open up to the outside, very important. And just in terms of distancing, certainly in areas such as the change room, we're looking at new change room configurations that give kind of spatial separation. And in fact, the universal change room model that we've been developing in a series of other projects that we're looking at here is already an ideal candidate for a more spread out, sort of more physically distanced change experience for the swimming pool. So those are all Those are all issues that we're looking at right now. Obviously, the research is ongoing onto the specific factors of sort of the viral load in buildings, and we're trying to keep up with that to make sure that the design stays consistent with research that's happening right now.
Thank you. I think that's an integral part of this presentation is for us to understand what's changed, because this presentation could have been given in February and it would have had my full support. Right now, I'm a little worried that we don't know what the community needs are going to be. I think we were very confident in February what our community needs would be, but the world has changed so much in the last few months. I think that we will see different needs within our community, and I want to make sure that we can respond to those. But you know, it's a delicate balance because we have to move forward with this project. I understand that, but we also have to be responsive to the changing needs in our community right now. Thank you for your response.
Madam Mayor, I believe CEO Webster has some comments, followed by General Manager Karmazin, and then Councillor Roy DeClemente has a question or comment after that.
Thank you. Mr. Webster, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Should we have the councillor go first, possibly, because I don't want to answer a question that maybe. So I had a couple of comments on Councillor Carruthers' point about timing, but I'll leave it to your discretion. Would you like me to provide my comments now, or would you like to go to Councillor Roy DeClemente?
Perhaps going to Councillor Roy DeClemente, and then you could bundle your comments at the conclusion of Council's questions.
And I believe Mr. Karmazin also wants to provide some comments too,
Yeah.
so maybe we could have that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually fine to continue along the vein of the issues that Councillor Carruthers raised. I guess there's sort of two discussions that we need to have today. One is what does our new normal look like? What is the impact of the new circumstances going to be on public spaces and facilities? Is what we're dealing with right now a temporary blip that's going to be over in 18 months to 2 years, or is this a long-term thing that really has to be a fundamental change in how we design this building? And that's I guess for me, that's the big challenge, is trying to understand where we are at and what our circumstances are going to be. I am happy to provide tons of feedback on what is a really exciting project that so many people have put literally years of their careers into making a reality. And for the most part, the feedback that I've been getting from residents that I've been sharing this with has been extremely positive, and there's a lot of enthusiasm out there, but there's also some apprehension. And I think maybe we could probably start the discussion there. I'm happy to go into some of the more pedestrian, literally, questions that I had because I've been so connected with this project for so long. But I think the high level discussion we need to have is the issue that Councillor Carruthers raised, and I'd be interested to hear what the rest of staff have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess Mr. Karmazin first, and then Mr. Webster, unless there's other members of council that have comments or questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the question that Councillor Carruthers has put forward, absolutely. What we're noticing as a trend is flexibility, is creating spaces that have flexibility. And what I mean by that is being able to adjust numbers where needed, being able to adjust to provide for space where needed and where we can provide for space, and standard operating procedures. So adjusting the standard operating procedures within those designed and constructed spaces so they can function. We are hearing that, through public health, that we will eventually see our way out of this, eventually with a vaccination. And so we will be able to hopefully resume, the way we lived our lives before. However, in designing the Health and Active Living Plaza, we are working with the architectural team to provide that flexibility So if we do have to be responsive and make adjustments to the way we operate, we can do so with our numbers, with our standard operating procedures, to create spaces that can be used safely.
Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing any further comments from council. CEO Webster has some comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Webster, please.
These are excellent discussion points, and it is an interesting point of time we are right here with the province just yesterday extending, or I guess it's today that the actual action will take place, but extending the provincial emergency to 2nd of June. We are also in a municipal state of emergency currently. And I guess it's the balance right now we have of continuing with our service provision and our commitments balanced with lessons that we continue to learn on a daily basis here. And one thing that will help is time. And the plan for us clearly was to have a discussion today, take the input, but we were planning, and I'll be frank about this, of coming to a very soon council session to seek award of the detailed design. And it's quite a challenge for the design team to incorporate all the moving pieces that might have to happen at this point in time. Clearly, such facilities as airports, concert venues, and sporting facilities that already have billions of dollars invested in current infrastructure are looking at retrofits. Some of our key design principles here have been borrowed. The whole notion of an outdoor living room. One of the key areas that comes from is Portland. And in Portland, when you go there, people are certainly closer than 6 feet apart. I can guarantee you, it's a community gathering point, and it's festivals, and musics, and so as far as moving into the detailed design, the design team does have quite a challenge at this point in time. And the other part we have with timing that's difficult right now is once we do move to recovery, there has been many discussions about another federal, provincial, municipal infrastructure round. And to have a potential project like this shovel ready would really put it into a good place, because this is a community building project, that's for sure. And listening to the two councillors, it is correct though. Once you're into bricks and mortar, you can't redo. And so very good discussion points. And I'm not sure if there is a right answer at this point in time, Madam Mayor, but we're continuing to move along and hopefully design something that, as Mr. Carmison said, can be flexible moving forward, and certainly would take into account best practices for what we know right now.
Thank you. I do think that the flexibility is most important. Every day we get up, things have changed. And so I'm not sure what the new norm really is at this point. As we move forward with this facility, we know the kinds of gathering places that we have desired, and also understand how we can make them more flexible for smaller groups as well. So it's going to be an interesting process in our interesting times, for sure. Are there any other members of council with any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, Councillor Crone has a question or comment.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good discussion today and great presentation. I think this is exciting to see what we could actually have. And I know I don't have, during my short time on council, I don't have the investment that you, Madam Mayor, and other members of council have in this. And so I know it's very important to you. I think Councillor Roy DeClemente and Councillor Carruthers make very valid points. Certainly I have a family member of mine, a cousin, is an architect, and he was working on the Royal Victoria Hospital up in Barrie. And that happened just right after SARS, and they had to adjust a lot of the design of the way the hospital was laid out to accommodate workflows and things like that to better protect the patient. So the point is, out of crisis, I think a lot of creativity and ingenuity happens. And I think if we can harness that, I don't think we're going to be in this crisis forever. I think they are going to come up with a vaccine. That's not to say that we won't have other pandemics in the future. I think that's probably very likely after, SARS 20 years ago and now this. It's a reality, but we can't. I don't think we can stop what we're doing every so often. A year ago we were worried about the governance review, whether East Gwillimbury would even exist or if we'd be amalgamated. I think sometimes you just have to carry on in the hopes that things are going to get better. I'm more concerned about the finances about this. It's the biggest investment we will have made in our town's history, and so I think we need to approach that very cautiously. We have the benefit of the best relative taxation in York Region, property taxes. We have zero debt. I think one of two in the province that have that, and we have the best reserves per capita in York Region. So we've got a lot to be proud of, but I'm also very protective of that. And so I like what CEO Webster talks about having the shovel ready in case that there are infrastructure money set aside. My prediction is it's going to go one of two ways. You're going to see governments at the end of this want to kickstart the economy, and they'll want to throw money into infrastructure to get the economy going. It's a good spin-off for the economy by using infrastructure money. They could go that route, or they may just slash government spending and look for new ways to tax it. That's one of two ways to go. So I think at least if we have something in the can and ready to go, I think we're in good shape. I'd be curious to know from staff if they have any reservations about the financial end of this. Other than the infrastructure funds that are available, money that we've set aside. Maybe if you were speaking to a resident, what would you say to that resident that they had apprehensions about the financial cost of that? That would just be a question I throw out to the staff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webster, are there staff members that would like to answer for Councillor Crone's question?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, there is. Just from a very high level perspective, we are, as Councillor Crone has quoted some of the stats, in a pretty favorable financial position currently. Short term on the COVID matter, as Council is aware from last week when we did an update, again, we're seeming to be able to accommodate it in a short term. Longer term, though, as we build out the operations center, and we also have the Queensville Healthy Active Living Plaza, there's going to have to be some very careful planning by our financial experts. And maybe on that, I'll ask Mr. Valchich, who has quite a history here, to provide a little bit of overview, and then maybe Mr. Marshall and his team can provide some context too of some of the thoughts from the actual financial team.
Thank you. Mr. Valchich?
Thank you, Mr. Webster and Madam Mayor, through you. First of all, I want to indicate that I'm glad that folks are raising questions about the finances, and that folks are concerned to make sure that the project is planned, managed, and undertaken in a financially responsible way. In fact, that's a priority for staff, and I'm pleased to hear that folks are asking what I think are the right questions. What I will say is, on the capital side, we have what we believe to be a good plan, funded through development charges and community capital contribution charges. And I think that Ms. Brown's point earlier is really important. As time goes on, and as that project timing changes and moves into the future, one of the things that's critical is that we keep our cost estimates up to date, and we make sure that our financing plan is updated accordingly and kept current. And that's what we're attempting to do. The other thing that I would say is, from a staff perspective, one of the things that, from my own experience, that I get probably more concerned about rather than the capital construction is the ability to operate because the operating costs are often not discussed explicitly when capital projects are undertaken. And I've seen some capital projects over the years that are undertaken with adequate capital dollars, and then the operating costs become a problem when you start to sort of anticipate and plan and actually manage the facility or program, whatever it is that you're constructing. In this case, staff have been, and the CAO mentioned it earlier, have been very proactive in sort of starting to carve out operating funds for the ultimate operation of this facility. And in many organizations, they would construct a facility of some form, and then they would concern themselves with the operating costs once they've got that built. And we haven't done that in East Gwillimbury. We're about halfway there, and we anticipate to be most, if not all the way there, by the time this facility would open. So I think that we're taking all the necessary steps to treat this in a fiscally responsible manner, and to make sure that our estimates are current and that our funding plans are adjusted as we go, to make sure that, in fact, not only is it affordable to build, but I think even more importantly, it's affordable to operate. And so that that threshold of resident population is pretty key to that, because our facilities folks have certainly indicated in consultation with our finance staff that at that population, we believe that we would have the revenues coming in from taxes and so on, as well as the fees that would support the operation to make it a feasible facility to operate. So those are all the things that we're considering as we go, and we will continue to keep all of those top of mind. And I really appreciate the questions in that regard.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marshall, did you have anything else to add to that, please?
No, I think General Manager Valchich summed it up pretty nicely. The one thing I would kind of emphasize is that we have started the multi-year financial plans, and I think it's important that we continue to do that. So by the time we're ready to operate the facility, that we've carved out enough room in our tax levy to fund that operation. So,
thank you very much. Are there any other members of council with questions at this time?
Madam Mayor, Councillor Rodi Clemente has a question or comment.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was hoping to hear from staff. Councillor Crone asked the question, what do we say to residents who are concerned about the money? Quite honestly, we made quite a big deal when we awarded the contract for the Ops Center at 16.7 million, and now we're contemplating a project that's more than 3 times that. And so this is uncharted territory for our taxpayers. And so how do we respond to residents who are saying, why are you even planning these sorts of things when we don't know what the future holds? And I absolutely understand and support the idea that flexible spaces using the principles of universal design will deliver a facility that should and can meet the needs of some of the new realities that we're faced with. But and of course, the lifespan of this building is much longer than any term of this pandemic might take. But at the same time, those financial impacts also may change as well. If we have provisions about crowding or the number of people allowed in a room, or if we have to start using fancy ventilation systems, how does that impact the cost of operating this business? So I guess that's what I'm looking for, is what's that elevator pitch to the resident who says, what are you doing contemplating spending 50 million public dollars when we have residents who might not be able to put food on the table and we don't know what the future holds? So I'm looking for that kernel, and maybe it doesn't exist, but I'm looking for that kernel to help me sort through this. Ultimately, it makes sense for us to continue this design process, to engage with this awesome plan, to improve upon it and have it in the can, shovel ready for when we do have the money, when we do have some certainty. But what I'm looking for is the ability to help move this forward and start to engage with the exciting design that's been put in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roy DeClemente. Staff, any thoughts regarding the question that Councillor Roy DeClemente has put before us?
Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor.
CEO Webster has a comment.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the 2 points that have clearly been raised today are, again, timely. One being, this isn't the normal world, and if we had come in February, I think decisions would have been made differently. We were planning in March and bringing an update report prior to the COVID on status of the grant application. We had applied for a provincial grant. We understand from our MPP, Caroline Mulrooney, that program was largely oversubscribed at the time, so we weren't being too hopeful. But who knows what the post-COVID world may look like. I think one of the things we could do is we've waited a while for this project, and rather than rush to detailed design at this point in time, Mr. Karmas has been working on a report with the staff team to bring, as I said, even to the next council meeting. I think we should take a slight pause, and I think what we could do is, prior to moving to detailed design, report back to council on some of the COVID implications for the design, rather than deal with it just a Q&A right here. And I think the thing about a preliminary financial Coles Notes version that we could use for how are we able to afford this and how are we going to be able to pay for it, that would be utilized for staff, town, elected officials, so that the public would have confidence that we're doing the right thing. So I would propose that we put those two backgrounder pieces together and bring it back with the next report regarding moving to the next steps of this project. It'll probably take about a month's time to do an adequate job on those elements, but I think it would really assist council in some of the decisions it would make going forward.
Thank you very much. The motion that we have regarding the workshop is to receive the presentation. I'm wondering if we should be adding some other components to that as well.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Crone was the initial mover of the motion. We'll get to that in a second. Councillor Carruthers has an additional comment or question if you want to deal with that prior to the motion.
Very good. Councillor Carruthers, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. Webster for his comments. I think somehow you can see my notepad because you said basically exactly what I just written down, and same with you, Madam Mayor, about do we need a motion on this? And I think it would be prudent for council to be seen asking for what we have been asking for, which is that follow-up report with what we're doing with regards to being flexible around this new reality that we're living in. I hear a number of comments from people about how we're going to get past this, and well, I want to remain positive that we're going to get past this. I think it's naive to think that we will go back to exactly where we were before. There was a time when people didn't wash their hands, and we didn't need to have sinks in every single public building. But now we do, and it would be ludicrous to think of a building being built without sinks. Well, I think there's going to be things like that in new buildings moving forward. Will we have another pandemic? Well, people say yes, that it could come back again. So I think that buildings will change going forward. Even though we'll get past COVID, there's going to be the constant threat of pandemic hanging over the world's head. Really moving forward, it is the new reality. So thank you everyone for your comments. I feel much more reassured now than I did at the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And so Councillor Crone, this is your motion.
Yeah, happy to amend it as everyone sees fit.
I'm wondering, Mr. Lamanna, could you read it out for us, please, with the changes that we've suggested?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Roy DeClemente has an additional question or comment before I get to that.
Very good. Councillor Roy DeClemente, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to try and help with that piece of the resolution because there was a comment put into the chat about what that resolution would look like, but it doesn't have to go in the resolution. But one of the things that I was looking for as far as future reporting was just an overall. I know we've seen versions of it in prior documents. I know there was something from June 2019 that sort of showed the community as design team. And from an accountability perspective, I would like the folks who engaged with this process to feel that they were listened to. And whether or not it was something that was unusual and extreme and something that we put on the nice to have list, but that we weren't going to include this time. I'd like to see a list, maybe the top 10 things that were requested, and then sort of an understanding of, so that we can say this design ticks these 20 boxes that we heard from our residents. I know, for example, the fitness piece was a surprising component that came out of that. We went into this process thinking that we weren't going to be looking at fitness, that we were well served in the private sector. And yet this design does have a small fitness component to it because that's what our residents asked us to deliver. And so I would like to be able to point, as people engage with this process, I'd like to be able to say, look, we listened. Here's the list of things that people asked for. And here's what we're delivering on. And these were the things that we couldn't accommodate. I know, for example, that people were hoping for a performance space. They wanted, from an arts and culture perspective, to have a theater or a stage or things like that. So, maybe engaging with some of that to show that we listened and we tried and we couldn't deliver necessarily, but there were plans elsewhere for something of that nature. So when people are reporting back, I don't think it's necessarily that staff report back on COVID issues, but that staff prepare a report outlining the issues raised by council regarding long-term financial implications, as well as the impact of the pandemic on this project. And I think that might encompass at a very large level, from a bird's eye view, some of the issues that we raised here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Is there anything from staff? Having heard all our questions and comments, could we call the vote, please, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the vote has been amended. I believe everyone can see the screen in front of you. The addition beyond be received is that staff prepare a report outlining issues raised by council with respect to financial implications and any pandemic implications. Councillor Crone, that is the intent of the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Morton is absent. Councillor Persicini, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rodi Clemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crothers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion's carried, Madam Mayor. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is item F, reports. Mr. Clerk, can you please confirm we do not have any reports at this time?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item G, resolutions. Mr. Clerk, can you please confirm that we do not have any resolutions at this time?
Also correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item H, bylaws. Mr. Clerk, can you please confirm that we do not have any bylaws at this time?
No bylaws, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We are now under item I, confirming bylaw. Could I please have a mover and a seconder for the confirming bylaw?
Moved.
Madam Mayor, I believe that was moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Rodi Clemente.
Very good. Could you conduct the recorded vote, please?
Thank you. Councillor Crothers, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Favor.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
In favor?
Councillor Morton's absent. Councillor Persicini, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councillor Rodi Clemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion's carried. Madam Mayor, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Moving forward to item J, the adjournment. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the council meeting at 11:14?
It is moved by Councillor Crone, Madam Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, could you conduct the recorded vote, please?
Thank you. Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Moran's absent. Councillor Persicini, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Worthy Clemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crothers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Madam Mayor, your meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the help today. It was very exciting, and I know long after we close the meeting today, there'll be a lot of thoughts and discussions that will take place as well. Thank you to everyone, and with that, we will close the meeting. Thank you.